Hi Fifth Hour, hi Mrs. Warner. This is my presentation on the economy of 1800s England. So the way that this video is going to work is you're going to hear me talk and then there's going to be like a pause in my speech and then you're just going to see a picture of the slide. You could either pause on the slide and you can read it all first, or you can just listen to me talk about it. So this is the economy of 1800s England. The slow shift to industrialization. The strength of Great Britain was known throughout the world, which made it a place many nations looked to for resources. Many industries such as steel or iron made the switch to large factories with thousands of workers under one roof. But there are many industries such as cotton, which kept the same system of only 50 workers in one place operating machinery that they were not educated to do. Small family firms were dominating compared to large national ones. Many relied on trusted family and friends within religious groups. The Jewish population was extremely tight-knit, especially at this point in history, so a lot of times when they referred to like these groups working together, a lot of times they were like in the Jewish communities or things like that. Manufacturing in growing cities was reliant on backstreet, uneducated, and cheap laborers, which the bright side, it was cheap labor, so they were able to produce more for a less costly methods, but a lot of times these people weren't actually educated in what they were doing, so there would be a lot of trial and error or a lot of products that were failed the first time that they came out. We want more. While England was supplying large amounts of resources to Europe, the small domestic trading secured a steady economic foundation. There was a newfound demand from a general increase in income and an increase in the amount of people. Increased earning opportunities for women and children allowed for more spending. Items such as furniture, books, clothing, shoes, and home decor were added to the shopping lists. People were now more inclined to buy food instead of growing it at home with their newfound wages. So basically, as there's more people in the world and more people are being able to go out and get jobs for themselves, obviously they're going to have more money to spend. So if they had the choice of going out to the store, people were more inclined to buy food instead of growing it for themselves. And then you can see here is a picture of the economic growth from the 1500s to the 1950s, and you can see the black line, which is Britain, has a pretty steady and more fast growth as compared to the other countries that it's focusing on. Old to new. Old England economy was mainly reliant on one major resource, cotton. Other items like wood and textiles were also a major resource, but none trumped the cotton industry. The economy became completely dependent on cotton sales. It flourished when cotton boomed, but when things got overstocked, a slight recession would occur. This unstable pattern occurred of slumps and recessions until the 1840s, when something new was sweeping the nation, the railroad. So there was a vast amount of cotton that England was able to sell, which was a good thing because they had something that the world wanted, but they were overly dependent on the cotton industry, which overall would not bode well for them. The railroad. The economy quickly became dependent on a new item, the railroad. Railroads were being built not just in the UK, but throughout Europe. This caused an increase in supplies to these new industrializing nations, which needed more items such as steel and iron from England. The expansion also meant that other, smaller goods could be traded and transported faster and with more ease than before. This huge increase caused credit to become easily available, which allowed for families to become wealthy and successful. So obviously, small items and even large items were being able to be shipped across the nation or even to other countries a lot easier than it was before, so they were increasing the sales that they could. The Great Exhibition of 1851. The Great Exhibition marked the peak for the British economy. The Crystal Palace in Hyde Park was filled with products for local and foreign visitors to view in the exhibit titled Works of Industry of All Nations. This time happened to correlate with the opening of major railroads to London from various points in the countryside. 6 million people visited this fair, and this boosted the British economy greatly. So basically this fair was just highlighting a lot of the products that Great England produced, but not only England, but also some of their, a lot of their allies, what they produced. So people traveled to this thing from miles or even from other nations to view what England had. And all of these people visiting here, they were buying things, they were spending money, and this only boosted England's economy more. High farming. High farming is defined as high-quality farming achieved by using the best materials and most efficient methods. The 1850s and 60s marked the highest points for farming of the century with rising profits. There was speculation as to what would become of farming because the Corn Laws of 1846 were just repealed, which did not allow for trading of certain farmed goods from outside countries. But the economy flourished until the 1870s when America's farming presence came at full force. So basically, England was using this period of high farming. They had the best materials. They were being able to harvest the most bang for their buck, so to speak. And the Corn Laws, which were repealed, like I just talked about, the 1846 Corn Laws, basically this just said that England could not import items such as corn from other nations because it would inhibit the growth of their own British farmers. The decline. The British economy started to decline amid the 1870s due to nations such as the US, Russia, and Germany. These nations had more abundant materials and were selling them at a lower price. Russia was expanding railroads all over its vast state, increasing the number of buyers it could provide to. America was supplying Europe with large amounts of grain for a very cheap price. Germany was pioneering new industries such as chemical production that England had yet to dip into. Items such as textiles, iron, steel, and products from arable farming like wheat and barley were entering very difficult times. And this was mainly because so many other nations could produce things like this at this point, so they didn't have to rely on England for them, and a lot of other nations were selling them for a much lower price than what England was. The lacking economy. There are multiple reasons historians have come up with as to why the economy made a decline at the end of the 19th century. Aristocratic landowners still controlled the government. So basically, government was being controlled not necessarily by people who knew what was going on or what was best for the nation, but just people who had a lot of money. So they were not always making decisions that were in the best interest of the whole nation, but rather than just the upper part of society. Financial and rentier industries guided the policy instead of industrial entrepreneurs. Again, people who really didn't know what they were doing when it came to managing the money that would be necessary to improve society were not in charge of making decisions. The later on generations of industrial leaders were now being sent off to university and studied things such as law and not business. So the people that were in a long family history of business owners were now choosing to not be business owners anymore, so now there were less experienced workers that were going into this field. The relaxed and gentlemanly policy towards industrialism led to their ultimate demise. So what they mean by this was that the gentlemanly policy means that they weren't always putting laws in place that were super aggressive and were going to boost the economy forward very rapidly. They were more passive because they didn't want to start arguments or possible trading issues or trading wars with other nations. And here are my websites used. Thank you for listening to my presentation on the economy of 1800s England.